fractions or rational expressions. So here we go. Number one, we are subtracting two fractions, so we must get a common denominator. We have a denominator of 7x and a denominator of 4x. Notice they are both monomials, okay? So let's start off with the coefficients. What's a common denominator for 7 and 4? 28. Now let's look at the variables. How many x's do I have here? 1. How many x's here? 1. Which group has the most? Well, they both have 1. So I want 1x for my denominator. Now let's go ahead and work on the numerators now. What do I have extra here that I don't have here? Well, I have an x here and I have an x here, that's fine, but the 7 was multiplied by 4. So I must take the -2 and also multiply it by 4. Over here I have an x here and an x here, so that's fine. But the 4 increased to 28 by multiplying by 7. So I must take this 5 and multiply it by 7. So now I have -8 over 28x, then a negative sign, then 35 over 28x. So my common denominator is 28x. So bring that over, and now I have -8 minus 35, or -8 negative 35, and that's -43. Alright, this cannot be reduced. A negative over a positive makes the whole fraction negative. So my final answer is -43 over 28x. Well, the x is in the bottom, sorry about that. -43 over 28x. Let me check the answer key real quick, and that is correct. Moving on to number 13. We are subtracting two fractions, so we must get a common denominator. You always want to factor before you get a common denominator. I'm going to start going pretty fast now on my factoring because we have had literally weeks and weeks of factoring, so it's time that we do it very quickly, okay? There's nothing common I can pull out. Trinomial lead coefficient of 1. What two numbers when multiplied together give me -30? When added together give me a -1, that's -6 and +5. So my factorization would be x -6. X +5, so now I can take my black pen and I can cross off this denominator because now it's replaced with this denominator right here, okay? So let's get our common denominator. There's no monomials here, no monomials here. We have all binomials, so let's compare binomials with binomials. I have one group of x -6. And I have one group of x -6. Which group has the most? Well, they both have 1. So I want one group of x -6 for my common denominator. I have one group of x +5. I have no groups over here. Which denominator has the most? This one does. It has 1. So there we go. There's my common denominator. And I'm going to write that twice because I have two fractions. So there's my two common denominators. So I have one fraction here, one fraction here. Bring this negative sign down. And here we go. My factorization was this. What do I have extra here that I don't have here? Absolutely nothing at all. So just bring down your numerator. What do I have extra here that I don't have here? Well, I have an x +5 that's extra. So I've got to bring down this numerator right here. And then also put x +5 because that's what I have extra here that I don't have here. So I'm doing pretty good, guys. Now, when I look at this, I realize I can quickly simplify this. Take your 3x and multiply it through. 3x times x is 3x squared. 3x times 5 is +15x. 5 times x is 5x. And 5 times 5 is 25. Now remember, this negative sign goes to everything up here. It's like this. It's like negative and then a parentheses. So this negative sign here goes to everything, okay? So now I have my common denominator right here. Then bring down your 3 3x squared. And then I have, let's see, all of these are positive, so they all become negative. If one of these had been negative like this, then this right here would become positive because the negative sign would change it. All of the signs change, okay? So because this negative sign, all of these change, so I have a negative 3x squared, a negative 15x, a negative 5x, and a negative 25. Now let's combine like terms and we're finished, okay? 3x squared minus 3x squared, those cancel out. Negative 15, negative 5, that's negative 20x. Negative 25, so negative 20x, negative 25. Is now your numerator. Now, in order, now listen to me guys, I know that you think you're done, and that's fine. And actually we are finished. Okay, this is the correct answer. I've already checked the back of the book. We're fine. But sometimes canceling can take place. So if you can factor any of these factor, okay, like for example 5 goes into both of these, I can put a negative 5 and that leaves me with 4x plus 5. Take that negative 5 and multiply it back through and you'll get this. Now the reason I did that, what if there would have been a 10 right here? Then this monomial here would cancel with this monomial here. So it's always wise to factor in your final answer if you can, just to see if something cancels. Okay, but this is the correct answer. Nothing cancels and we are done. Number 17. Okay, we are adding and subtracting fractions, so let's go ahead and find a common denominator. I cannot factor this, I cannot factor this, I cannot factor this, so here we go. How many monomials here? None. How many monomials here? None. How many here? 1. So I have 1x, there's none here and none here, so the most I have is 1. Now binomial, binomial, I have one group of x plus 1, none over here, so I want one group of x plus 1. I have one group of 2x minus 3, none over here, so I want one group of 2x negative 3. Now I'm going to copy this common denominator 3 times because I have 3 fractions, okay? And here we go. Here's ones for one fraction. Here's the other for the other fraction. And we're probably going to run out of room here. So we'll have to shrink this down a little bit. And here's the other for the other fraction. Alright. So here we go. Here's a positive sign, bring that down. Here's a negative sign, bring that down. Okay. What do I have extra here that I don't have here? Well, let's see. It would be an x and a 2x negative 3. X and a 2x negative 3. So an x, a 2x negative 3. And then bring down your numerator, 4x. Alright, now let's come over here. What do I have extra here that I don't have here? Well, it would be x and x plus 1. So I'm going to put an x and then an x plus 1, and then bring down my positive 5. And then what do I have extra here that I don't have here? Well, these two parentheses right here. So I'll put those right up top to balance the fraction and then bring down your 4 from right here. And now we have a bunch of simplifying to do, so here we go, students. Stay with me. 4x times x is 4x squared. Now take 4x squared and multiply it through. 4x squared times 2x is 8x cubed. 4x squared times negative 3 is negative 12x squared. Alright? So there's the top, the numerator of my fraction. Alright? Now let's simplify over here. 5 times x is 5x. Take your 5x and multiply it through. 5x times x is 5x squared. 5x times 1 is positive 5x. Bring that down. And as the top of your other fraction. Alright? Now this one here is going to be pretty long, I believe. I'm going to save this 4 for last. I think it's easier to multiply a binomial times a binomial first. So I'm going to leave my 4 and put a parentheses. X times 2x, 2x squared. X times negative 3x. 1 times 2x, 2x. 1 times negative 3. Now take your 4 and multiply it through. I know we can combine right here. I'm going to do that later. So bring down your positive sign, by the way, between the two fractions. Bring down your negative here between the two fractions. And now here we go. 4 times 2 is 8x squared. 4 times negative 3, negative 12x. 4 times 2, positive 8x. 4 times negative 3, negative 12. Alright. And there is my common denominator. Like this, okay? So I'm going to erase this. And now let's see if we can't do some more simplifying. We're almost finished, alright? Let's shrink this a little bit so we have some more room to work with. And here we go. Okay, let's write our common denominator once. And we'll put a big old fraction bar, and here we go. We have an 8x cubed, a negative 12x. I'm going to go ahead and just bring that down. We have a positive sign here, so none of these change, so we'll bring those on down. Now here's a negative sign. That means all of your signs here will change. So your positive 8 becomes negative 8. Your negative 12 becomes a positive 12. Your positive 8 becomes a negative 8. And your negative 12 becomes a positive 12. Now let's combine like terms. I have an 8x cubed. X squares, I've got a positive 5 and a negative 8. That's a negative 3x squared. I've got a negative 12x and a positive 12x. They cancel. Positive 5 and a negative 8. That's a negative 3x. And then a positive 12. So if I have not messed up, it looks like that's going to be my numerator right there. Pull it down here. Do this quick erasing here. And that should be your answer. Let's check real quick, and hopefully we got this right. What number was this? 17. I think we're looking pretty good on this one, alright. Moving on to number 21. Alright, number 21. Okay, we are going to combine these two fractions. So let's get a common denominator. Always factor your denominators if you can. You cannot plot anything common. What two numbers when multiplied together give you negative 10? When add together give you a positive 3. I'm thinking of positive 5 and negative 2. Alright. So let's go ahead and put our factorization. X positive 5. X negative 2. Alright, so there's the factorization for this right here. Go ahead and cross this off. Now let's get our common denominator. I have no monomials here, no monomials here. I have all binomials. One group of x plus 5, one group of x plus 5, so I want one group of x plus 5, one group of x minus 2, no groups over here. So I want one group of x negative 2. So there is my common denominator. I'm going to write that twice because we have two fractions. And here we go. Because of the negative sign here, I'll put a negative sign here. What do I have extra here that I don't have here? Nothing. So just bring down your numerator. What do I have extra here that I don't have here? Well, x negative 2. So I've got to write that up here. And then bring down my 2. And now let's simplify. I've got a 2 that I can multiply through. 2 times x is 2x. 2 times negative 2 is negative 4. So now I'm going to go ahead and combine my two fractions. Write your common denominator once. Okay, now let's go ahead and take this right here and bring it down. So 3 negative 4x. Now there's a negative sign here, so all these signs change to your positive 2x becomes negative 2x. Your negative 4 becomes positive. So let's combine like terms, okay? Negative 4 and negative 2, that's negative 6x. Positive 3, positive 4, that's positive 7. Alright, so that's your numerator. Now, let me get this out of the way here and erase some of this. And there we go. There's no factoring you can do. There's no canceling you can do. That is the answer. Alright. Okay, moving on to number 25. Okay, now we're getting into complex fractions, okay? Now with complex fractions, remember you want to get one fraction up top and one fraction in the bottom. That's your goal. Then you can take those two fractions, you can divide them out. Okay, so here we go. Let's take our top two fractions. Let's work on those first, okay? So 3 over x squared, positive 1 over x. Now, let's get a common denominator. Monomial, monomial. I have two x's here, one x here. Which group has the most? This one does, and it has 2. So my common denominator is x squared. But two common denominators because I have two fractions. Bring down your plus sign. Now, what do I have extra here that I don't have here? Nothing. So just bring down your numerator. What do I have extra here that I don't have here? Well, I've got two x's here and one x here. So I have one extra x. So I'll put that up top to balance the fraction and bring down my numerator. So I have 3 plus 1x. So 3 positive x over x squared. So this entire numerator here became this right here. Alright, so let's put this up here. This is now the top of my fraction. Now let's take these two fractions here and let's put them together. Okay, and you might say, oh, Mr. Earhart, that's not two fractions. Well, if I put 2 over 1, it is. So I have 2 over 1, negative 4 over 5x. Okay, now, a common denominator for 1 and 5x. Well, if you have just a 1 here, then the common denominator is going to be the other denominator. So my common denominator is 5x. Write that twice because you have two fractions. Bring down your negative sign. What do I have extra here that I don't have here? Well, a 5x. So I've got to put a 5x up here. And then bring down my 2. Okay? What do I have extra here that I don't have here? Well, nothing. So just bring down your 4. And here's what we have. 2 times 5x is 10x. 10x negative 4. So 10x negative 4 over 5x. Now there we go. That's the bottom of the fraction right there. So now I finally have one fraction over one fraction. Alright. So let's see what happens here. Let's take my top fraction, put it here. Take my bottom fraction and we're going to put it here. Then we're going to flip it and we're going to multiply. Alright. So this will go down here in the denominator. This will go up here in the numerator. So we flipped our fraction, and when you flip it, we multiply. Now let's see what we have here. We have two x's here and one x here. Take away one x, we're left with x. Take away one x, we're left with 5. Here, I can factor out a 2, but I don't think that's going to help any. I'm left with 5x minus 2, and that's not going to cancel with anything. So I'm going to leave that alone, okay? So what I'm going to end up with is 3 plus x times 5, that's 5 times 3 plus x. I put parentheses around this because it's a binomial. Over here I have x times 10x negative 4. Now, I'm going to look in the back of the book and see how they want you to finish this. Okay, this is number 25, I believe. Give me just 1 second here, students. And let's see what they have here. Looks like I might have made a mistake on this one. I hope that I did not. No, I did not. Everything is actually perfect, except they left it like this, so we're totally fine. They had x plus 3 instead of 3 plus x. And here they multiplied the x through. They had 10x squared minus 4x. I really don't care, guys. Okay, I really don't. So you could have this, or you could have 15 positive 5x over 10x squared negative. It's a negative 4x. I don't care. Okay. All right, moving on to number 29. Okay, getting a little more complex now. But I will say this. Do you notice in the denominator here, we have one fraction. In the last problem we had two fractions in the bottom and two up top. But this is actually a little easier. At least this part is. All that we have is one fraction in the denominator here, so we don't have to do anything with that. We've already got our goal for the denominator. Your goal, don't forget, is to get one fraction up here and one down here. We have one fraction. Now we've got to take these two fractions and combine them so they're one fraction. Okay, so here we go. 1 over 2x plus 1, negative or minus 3 over 4, 2x positive 1. Now, here we go. Let's get a common denominator. I have no monomials here. I have a monomial here. So there's a 4 here and no 4 over here. So I want a 4 for my common denominator. I have a binomial and a binomial. I have one group of 2x plus 1, one group of 2x plus 1. So I want one group of 2x plus 1. So I write my common denominator twice because I have two fractions. Bring down your negative sign. What do I have extra here that I don't have here? A 4. So I put a 4 up top to balance the fraction and then bring down a 1. So 1 times 4, which is just 4. What do I have extra here that I don't have here? Nothing. Just bring down the 3. So let's subtract these two. 4 minus 3 is 1. So I have 1 over 4 parentheses 2x positive 1. Okay, so that'll be my numerator. So what I have, students, is this. I combine these two fractions and I got this. So that's up top. In the denominator, I'm going to have this. X over 2x positive 1. So now all that I have to do is simply take the top fraction, put it here, take the bottom fraction, and of course flip it. I've got to flip it still. And then multiply the two together. And here we go. 2x plus 1 cancels with 2x plus 1. Leaves you with a 1 here and a 4 here. 1 times 1 is 1. 4 times x is 4x. 1 over 4x. And that's the correct answer. Alright, moving on to number 33. Okay, students, here we go. Now look, we have two fractions up top here in the big fraction. Here's my big fraction bar, and I have two fractions at the bottom. I must make these two become 1. So here we go, 1 over 2x, negative 6 over x positive 5. Now, I've got to get a common denominator. I have a monomial here and no monomials over here. So that's the only monomial I have. So 2x and 2x. I have a binomial here, no binomial over here. So I'm going to need 1x positive 5 for my other part of my common denominator. Now, bring down your negative sign. What do I have extra here that I don't have here? Well, an x positive 5. So put an x positive 5 here to balance the fraction, and then bring down your 1. What do I have extra here that I don't have here? Well, a 2x. So put a 2x here to balance the fraction and bring down your numerator. And here we go. 1 times x positive 5 is just x positive 5. And then 6 times 2x is 12x. Now have a negative sign here. So it's x positive 5 minus 12x. Do you see it? X positive 5 negative 12x. Well, that would simplify to a positive 1 and a negative 12 is negative 11x. Positive 5 all over your common denominator, which is 2x, x positive 5, okay? So a lot of work, but there's our numerator, okay? I'm going to erase this. Well, I better not do that yet. I'm going to leave that down here for just a second, okay? So this entire fraction here replaces all of this up here. When I put these two fractions together, I got this right here, okay? So understand that. All right, now let's take the bottom two fractions and let's combine them and get one fraction. X over x negative 5, positive 1 over x. Alright, let's go ahead and slide this over so we have some room to work. And let's get a common, this will be the numerator by the way up here. Let's slide this up here, put a big fraction bar, and there's my numerator. Now, let's go ahead and combine these two. I have a monomial here and no monomial here, so I want an x and an x in my common denominator. I have a binomial here, no binomial over here, so I want my x negative 5 for part of my common denominator. One group of that. Bring down your positive sign. What do I have extra here that I don't have here in x? And then bring down your x. And obviously x times x is x squared. What do I have extra here that I don't have here? Well, x negative 5. Alright. And then bring down your 1, but guys, 1 times anything is just itself. So 1 times x minus 5 is just x minus 5, or x negative 5, so there we go. So I have x squared plus x negative 5. None of these signs change because my sign here is positive. So I have x squared positive x negative 5 all over x negative 5. Alright, so that's going to be your denominator right there, okay? So I have the top fraction here. Did not mean to do that. Top fraction here, right here, being divided by the bottom fraction here. So let's take my top fraction and slide that right over here, right to here. Top fraction being divided by the bottom fraction. So I've got to flip this fraction around. It shouldn't be too difficult to do. And now we're going to multiply. Okay, let's look for things that cancel. I'll be honest, guys. I'm not seeing anything that cancels, and I think that fits the answer right here. Yeah, it does, look. Actually, I could be wrong. There is something that cancels. Okay, my fault. Monomial here. Monomial here. Cross off your x, cross off your x. So you take the numerator times the numerator. That's negative 11x positive 5 times x negative 5. You must have parentheses around these two binomials. And then we have a 2 times an x positive 5 times x squared positive x negative 5. There we go. And I think that matches perfectly. Let's see. Yep, there we are. That's exactly right. Okay, so nothing more you can do, guys. You could try to factor this. It's not factorable. None of these binomials are factorable. And nothing else cancels, so we're good. Last problem. Now, we're going to solve this equation. I know that I did not give you any of these in your notes, but that's okay. This will be a fair question on a test or a quiz because you know how to simplify this side, and once you simplify this side, you then have a rational equation, and I've taught you how to solve rational equations. So it's totally legit, and here we go. First of all, we're gonna forget that we have an equation. We're gonna forget about all of this just for a second, and we're gonna totally simplify this side over here like we've been doing. Okay, so here we go. First of all, I want to take these two fractions and combine them, so I have one big fraction up top here. Okay, so here we go. X over 1, negative 5x positive 3 over x minus 1. Now, obviously, if I have a 1 here, then my common denominator is x negative 1. fractions, bring down your negative sign. Obviously I have nothing extra here that I don't have here, so just bring down your numerator. What do I have extra here that I don't have here? Well, everything, so put your x negative 1, and then bring down your x. So, simplify this right here. X times x is x squared. X times negative 1 is negative x. Now, don't forget this negative sign here changes all of these signs over here. So my entire numerator becomes, are you ready? X squared negative x from right here. And positive 5x becomes negative. And positive 3 becomes negative. And that's all over x negative 1. Now, I can simplify this. Negative 1, negative 5, negative 6x. Okay? So let's quickly fix that. X squared negative 6x negative 3. X squared negative 6x negative 3. Now there is this fraction here replaces this right here. Alright, that's my numerator. Put a really big fraction bar. Now we're going to get back to work. Now we're going to take these two fractions here and combine them into one fraction. But remember, you never ever find a common denominator. Listen to me, students. You do not find a common denominator unless if you can factor first, and we can factor this denominator right here. We can pull out a 2. So we really have 2x, 2x negative 2. Okay? Negative x over 2. Now, let's compare monomial with monomial. Monomial. I have 1, 2 here and 1, 2 here, so I need a 2 for my common denominator. Now I have a binomial here, no binomials. Over here I have one group of x minus 2, none over here, so I need one group of x negative 2. So there's my common denominator, okay? Plus your fraction bars, bring down your negative sign. What do I have extra here that I don't have here? Nothing. So bring down your 2x. What do I have extra here that I don't have here? X negative 2. Then bring down your x. Alright, we can simplify this. We cannot simplify this, but we can simplify that. So, x times x is x squared. X times negative 2 is negative 2x. Alright, so there's my numerator right there. X squared negative 2x. Remember this negative sign here. Change all of these signs up here. So now I have 2x. The x squared becomes negative. And because of this negative, the negative 2x becomes positive. So I have 2x minus all of this, all over my common denominator of 2. X negative 2. Alright, there we go. Now let's simplify the numerator real quick here and we'll be finished, okay? I have a negative x squared. I have a 2x and a 2x. That's a positive 4x. All over 2x negative 2. Alright, so here we go. That is my entire denominator right there. So here's what we do. We're going to take this denominator here, we're going to take this numerator, and we have the numerator divided by this fraction here. So let's go ahead and switch these things around. We're flipping the second fraction. And let's see if we can cancel anything. We should do some factoring. This can be factored. Plot a negative x and we're left with x negative 4. This cannot be factored here at all, and there's no factoring here. So really, we've got a lot of work here. This is going to be a tough problem, which is fine. So let's quickly clear up a little bit of a mess here. And I probably made a mistake and start the whole problem over again, which is fine. But hopefully that's not the case. And let's do a bunch of multiplying, guys. We got a lot of work to do, okay? This cannot be simplified. This cannot be simplified. This becomes 2x negative 4. Take your 2 and multiply it through. This becomes negative x squared positive 4x. So I guess I really didn't need to factor that off after all. Okay, let's multiply. So I have this times all of this, and I have this times all of this. It's going to be a lot of work, okay? So I'm kind of worried I made a mistake, but hopefully I haven't, okay? Let's see what happens here. Alright, here we go. We're multiplying a trinomial times a binomial. X squared times 2x, 2x cubed. X squared times negative 4, negative 4x squared. Negative 6x times 2, negative 12x squared. Negative 6x times negative 4, positive 24x. Negative 3 times 2, negative 6x. Negative 3 times negative 4, positive 12. So there we go. Now let's take a binomial times the binomial. X times negative x, that's negative x cubed. X times 4x, positive 4x squared. Negative times a negative is a positive x squared. Negative times a positive, negative 4x. Okay, so let's simplify and see what we got here. Alright, here we go. Up top I have 2x cubed. And then for my x squareds I have a negative 4 and a negative 12. It's negative 16x squared. Then I have a positive 24 and a negative 6 is positive 18x. And then a positive 12. In the denominator I have negative x cubed. Positive 4, positive 1, that's a positive, positive 5x squared. And then negative 4x. So there we go. So, wow. More than likely I made a mistake somewhere, but I hope that I haven't. Alright. So this entire left side now equals this. Okay. So I have my entire left side equaling that. And of course it equals negative 2. Now you know what to do. We're going to multiply both sides by my denominator here. Okay? So I want to get rid of my fraction. I have negative 2 over 1. So it's a rational equation. You guys know what to do. I find a common denominator and I multiply it times both sides. However, remember, I mean, there is really no common denominator to find. I have a 1 here. So I'm just going to multiply both sides by this right here. I'm going to multiply the entire equation by my denominator right here. So here we go. Multiply this side by that. We're going to multiply this side over here by this also. Now if we multiply this times this, this will obviously cancel with this, leaving us with this right here. 2x cubed minus 16x squared, positive 18x, positive 12, equals, now we're going to multiply this times this, so we have negative 2. We have negative 2 times the this entire expression here. So negative times a negative is positive 2x cubed. Negative times a positive is negative 10x squared. Negative times a negative is positive 8x. Now, right away, you should see I've gotten rid of my fractions. All I've got left, okay? Now listen, as soon as I say I have a third degree equation, I realize I want to get one side equal to 0 right away. So bring the 2x cubed over and make it a negative 2x cubed. Bring the negative 10 over and make it a positive 10. Bring the positive 8x over and make it a negative 8x. Alright, and let's see what happens. These cancel. Negative 16, positive 10, negative 6x squared. Positive 18, negative 8, that's positive 10x. Bring down your 12. All of that equals 0. So we've done all this work to finally get the equation down to this. Now this is a quadratic equation. Let's try to factor it and see what happens, okay? Hopefully we can factor it. The first thing you do is you pull out a negative 2 because you never want your first term to be negative. And 2 goes into all those numbers. So we're left with 3x squared. Negative 5x. Positive 6. Let's check and make sure we're right. Actually, that'd be a negative 6 right there. And here we go. Negative 6x squared. Positive 10x, negative 12. Now, we have to say to ourselves, okay, we have a trinomial here with a coefficient of 3. Negative 6 here. So 3 times negative 6 is negative 18. What two numbers when multiplied together give me a negative 18? When add together, give me a negative 5. And I'm not thinking of any. So we've probably made a mistake on this video. Or on this problem. So I'm going to have to rework it.